probably drinking too much ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really discovered somatic therapy and really dove in deeply to that. I mean, I was in a place where I was so open, and like, I feel like ayahuasca was like helping to unfreeze myself. And so I was starting to unthaw and starting to feel things that I hadn't felt in a long time, positive and negative.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really overwhelming. And I didn't have enough tools to be like, I didn't have enough capacity to be with it. Started to have panic attacks. Like, I was scared to leave my apartment. Like, there was a lot of like fear that was coming in at that time. I'm like,
Right.
pretty much. I was like seeing spirits. Like, there was a lot of like that it opened for me that I don't think I was quite equipped for.
Right.
And so I really, it was like by necessity, I was seeing a somatic therapist, and it was a lifesaver at the time. And then I was like, this is really helpful. Like,
thank you so much, Dr. Jenny Cundari, coming on the Neuro's Journey podcast. Thank you for flying out here. I'm so blessed to have you, and that you made the trip and made time for this. So it's meaningful to me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me out and planting that seed. And it's so good to be here.
Nice. Yeah, so we'll just jump right in. Like, reading your CV is kind of an exhausting exercise, honestly. You've done a lot of things. So, like, when you tell people what you do and who you are, what do you pick and choose from all of that? We're laying all that before.
I mean, usually I start with, I'm professionally trained as a licensed naturopathic doctor, and then also trained as a somatic therapist through the somatic experiencing training. And I've had a lot of different trains and different certifications. And I feel like when I'm working with people, I'm pulling from different tools, different modalities, and working with them in that way, depending on what's needed. So my main intention with working with people is to really create a container, a safe container with compassion to really support whatever is needed in terms of their intention, their path, and really like meeting them where they're at, very individualized care, and just really like pulling through the tools that I can pull from my previous experience and training. And really, the intention is to really support them in connecting back with their bodies, this wisdom that lives in the body, and really supporting them in, just discovering more of who they really are and what's their path, and, how to live with more joy, more fulfillment, and to provide tools to build more capacity, to have more nervous system regulation, and also just, to live what's really true for them. So, in a nutshell.
Wow, that's also exactly like my primary care physician. That's so like, are people coming to you typically in the sense of like being their medical doctor? Is it more like they're having anxiety? It's like, what are you treating people? What's your kind of?
It's been very mixed over the years. I've been in practice for about 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been such a range. When I used to live in Vancouver, Canada, it was a lot of, it's always really been word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So someone will come in, have an experience, and then they'll go tell their family and friends, and then come in. And at first it was I did a lot more like injury rehab and like more physical of like muscles and structures in the body. And then it would open up to more because I'm always asking a ton of questions. And then a lot of like women's health, fertility, just hormonal disturbance, sleep issues. And then it really morphed into like mostly dealing with mental health. And so in the earlier years of my practice, I was really seeing a lot of the like more chronic health issues and physical issues that people were struggling with, usually stemmed from, more of like the mental emotional components of like anxiety, depression, and how that impacted the physiology. And really like understanding how the nervous system is so connected to the hormonal system, to the immune system, to the digestive system. And so, someone might come in for like, they're having like digestive issues, and then we like start to expand and we start to dive a little deeper, and then they start opening up about childhood trauma, or, this happened when I was 13. And so I started to learn pretty quickly that would happen often. And so like, okay, I think I'm creating some sort of space here where people are wanting to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it was because I was also going a lot deeper in my own work. It was creating a certain kind of resonance and certain kind of field that, again, it's like not a conceptual experience. It's more of a felt sense. And there was just a certain level of like spaciousness and safety in the container and compassion too. I mean, I think with my own experiences, it's allowed me to have a lot more empathy and compassion. And so that's felt. And then there's like an ability to drop in even more. And so, yeah, it's been a mix of like when people come see me. And then I moved to California and I was working at a integrative mental health clinic in Berkeley. And so that was more specific for mental health.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing ketamine assisted psychotherapy there. And so, but it was interesting because I would still like be focusing on all the systems when I'd work with them a lot of the time because of my training. My interview skills are a lot of like, I'm always asking someone how they're sleeping. I'm always asking them, what's their digestion like? Are they having bowel movements? Like probably a lot of questions that like a therapist wouldn't ask.
Right.
And so, I really see it as like holistic. It's very holistic. It's like looking very much so at the whole person.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, like it's, I think about like my most recent clients, again, they're like word of mouth family members of people that I've worked with, and a range. I have someone right now who's struggling with fertility. I have another patient of mine who's, she's in her 60s and she's, really, really doing some amazing healing work, really diving in deep to some old patterns and really getting into a lot of the childhood stuff. And in turn, that helps with the physiological struggles that she has too. So it's like, you kind of like working with the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just depends on like, what's the access point in terms of like what someone's coming in with.
And I think it's just nice for it to be integrated like that because there's this mental health thing, like this is sort of separate from our bodies, and I think there's a stigma around that. And really, if for me, a turning point was just seeing my brain scanned and like looking at it like, okay, this is like a functioning organ in my body. And there's some places it's not functioning well. And tomorrow at the party, you'll be able to see my QEEG brain scans. Like, yeah. So you see the progress and all that. So you were talking about when we had our pre-interview, you said something along the lines of like, you cannot really take others further than you've been, right? And so you've had this pretty intense path. And so like, what have you learned from that path that like benefits people? And then I guess the other thing that just came up to me is, how do you make sure you're not projecting your path onto them?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think that can happen for some practitioners. I think first question, like, I feel like I learned that really early on in my path of like, you can't teach people further than you've never been yourself. And that kind of like what I said before in terms of this, like, it's not a conceptual experience. It's more of a felt sense. And as I was doing a lot of my own healing work, I started to notice there was like different practitioners who I would be more open with, where I would go deeper with. And then there were some where I wouldn't. And so really like having a very curious mind, like really trying to get curious about what that was about. And I think I started to really have the felt sense of what it feels like to be in the presence of someone who's really embodied and who's really present and who has done a lot of their own healing work to build more and more that capacity to really like be present with someone and to have that kind of empathy and compassion that's like, you can tell they're not getting lost in your experience, but there's something in them that understands what you're talking about.
Right.
There's like a certain kind of like nod or wink of like resonance of like, yeah, I got it. I get it. And that there's a certain level of safety that comes with that in my experience and opinion. And so that's, I also like, I wouldn't necessarily go to say like a psychedelic assisted therapist who hasn't had a lot of experience themselves. similar to like I wouldn't get on a plane
Right.
with a pilot that hasn't flown a lot.
Right.
It's like I really want to know that the person who's
Mhm.
like holding the container and guiding me knows the terrain,
Mm.
knows what's going to go on in terms of like they're not afraid if I'm like start screaming, I'm like experiencing something like really intense, or they're not going to be like anxious and nervous if I start to like explain to them something that I'm revisiting from the past. They're steady and they're able to like really hold that strong, safe container. And so I've noticed in my own work, like the more in depth I go, the deeper the people I work with go. It's just been very like a clear correlation.
That's inspirational to keep you on your path, right?
No, totally. It's
Yeah.
like, it creates a lot of humility
Hmm.
because it really keeps me in a place of like, really noticing too, like if I'm working with someone and there's something I'm at a place where I can like, oh, that bumping up against one of my edges of like, okay, I gotta go like work that with my therapist. There's something there that it's like, that's a little sticky that it's touching on in me. And I remember very earlier on in my practice, that used to happen a lot.
Hmm.
I'd be like, ooh, this is intense. Like someone was coming in with something, and then I'd go work that in my own therapy. And it's happening less and less in terms of I feel like it can stay pretty steady. There's not a lot that can like throw me off center in those spaces. And so yeah, it's just one of my own personal philosophies of like, and a lot of my mentors like taught me that along the way too, of like, you better be doing your own work if you're wanting to hold space for people. And I think I've just really gotten to see the impact of like, the more steady I am, the more clear I am, the more in my center I am, it's just more magic happens. And there's more of like a deepening that happens in that space. And it's just been really like a felt experience of getting to witness that over the years. And yeah, it keeps me very honest.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned that thing, just a wink or a nod, and it's really amazing, like what a wink or a nod from the right person can communicate, right? That it's just like it's like paragraphs of info in that. And what came to mind when you were saying that is I perceive this to be sort of an edgy thing, maybe or maybe not. Like, but so you're this healer, right? You're the doctor. They're coming in to see you, but when somebody's bumping up against something, like, do you feel like that you have the space to communicate that to the person because you're in this position of like, you're supposed to be the healer, right? It's like usually above or below, but, for me, I think I would totally respect that, right?
Yeah. Yes. And I think, in my experience, it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Depends on where they're at and like their level of openness as well. And yeah, I think that, I have done that a little bit with certain patients of mine. It's been very selective in terms of when I do disclose something. It's more, again, one of my teachers and mentors, Dr. Gabor Mate, he was someone who I had worked with a lot earlier on in my path. And I really like what he says. Hopefully I can remember it. It's like, it's important to share from the scar, not the wound. And so that stuck with me of like, I'm not going to share something with someone that's still like, could potentially dysregulate me, or like that I haven't gotten to a place where I feel really steady in it. And so I probably wouldn't share. But if it's something that I feel like I've done a lot of work around, I feel really strong and in like a certain kind of steadiness around it. Because I still want whoever I'm working with to feel safe and feel like I can still hold them.
Yeah.
And so it's an edgy little dance.
Right.
How much to disclose. And, but I have had experiences where, which I think is just very human, where I've like, I've said like, I'm really touched by what you're saying right now. And like, I'm noticing that I feel quite emotional, and it's like, it's touching on something really deep in me. And that to me, I think is just showing a lot of humanity and like, you're not alone in this. Like, this is also touching something deep in me. And so again, it just depends on the moment and, I'm sure there's times where I've been not skillful, but I try my best to be
Yeah.
as skillful as possible and like to really, maintain that level of like sturdiness but also softness of like, really holding that container so that there is a way that they can really soften and they know that I've got them in that space.
Right.
And so, because if it were to start to like become all about me, that would not be good, right?
Yeah, of
Like,
course. So there's
it's like,
has there ever been a circumstance where you kind of recommended somebody to work with a different practitioner because you just felt this is edgy for me and Johnny would be better at it? Or
that's a good question. I think earlier on there was someone I was working with that had actually like sexually assaulted someone else. And that was a very like, I think now I'd be able to hold that. But earlier on, this was maybe like 9 years ago, like that was super edgy for me of like, can I actually hold this with a lot of compassion? And my capacity wasn't as big as it is now. And so I don't know if I explained that per se to him, but I did like suggest he work with someone else.
Yeah.
I just said it might be a better fit. I can't remember exactly what I said, but that's one of the memories.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting part of this path. I mean, I'm not like a doctor or whatever, but I certainly feel that I'm talking about all this stuff and it keeps me on my game to keep my practices up. And I'm very open to like, I'm not some healed person, like it's like a state of process that I live with. And I've learned how to kind of make the inevitable down things a little less triggering than doing practices and whatnot. But I do really love that aspect of it, that it's like, if I'm going to do this, I have to be it. And so I really feel like it's not pressure. I mean, and maybe it's like good responsibility, something like that.
Well, that's something I really appreciate about you that I know that I really felt when I first like started. Yeah. When I watched the first interview with Johnny, it was like, okay, yeah, he's like walking his talk. He's not just like pretending to be this guy, and so that's something that I really appreciate. It really goes a long way in terms of like, I feel like it helps to build connection a lot quicker and there's a lot more trust.
Yeah, because I see there's a number of people that I follow on, and I think they're great and all that, but they, they'll make this claim like, after my awakening, this happened. And like, when I'm hearing that, I'm like, man, that's putting you in a box, like you have to be awakened now. And I just certainly have had like big shifts in my life, and I feel very different in a lot of ways. But I mean, and it's funny, I think life just continually brings up the things that are needed. I mean, I never, like, this party has been so fucking triggering for me, because it was like, and I didn't anticipate it, but when I look back, I was like, oh, this perfectly like hits my 3 most core childhood wounds, like speaking in front of people. I told you my abuser told me not to speak. I stuttered for a long time. And then having kind of a father wound of being unlovable, like, is anybody going to show up? And, there's been so much that's been interesting to come up, because it's like, I'm trying to cultivate my own internal, like, independence. But I mean, I have to say, like, the party's gotten like easier as more people bought tickets, which is, that just is what it is. I mean, I'm working through it, but I also just sort of looked at it and I was like, this is like the perfect way this could have gone down.
Totally.
Because it was like, this is like the beginning of this. It's really like pushing my buttons. I got to do like a whole kind of thing about vulnerability and what it's like, and like coming from a place of being real triggered around it recently. And it just feels like, to me, it's just this notion of like, we're all in this together. Like, everybody's going through their thing, and now your journey and mine are overlapping, and we're sort of friends. And, and so if you could look at it from that perspective, it's not, so much like looking down. It's just like people are in different spots.
Yeah.
And we can respect them all. And, you don't have to hang out with them all. Like, I think I've definitely shifted up that, but.
Yeah. And that's, I think it's it's really, just important that like, what you're saying about like, we're all human. And like, this is, I think, kind of a through thread of what we've been talking about is this like how healing it is to know that like you're not alone. And like the vulnerability or the fear or the, it's like we all have our unique paths and our unique stories, but there's a lot, everything's very universal in terms of like a lot of these themes. And I think that that's where like when you are doing your own healing work, it creates, like I said, like a certain amount of, empathy and capacity where you can really, like the wink or the nod, where someone you're with can be like, oh yeah, I'm not alone in this. I'm not like the most fucked up person. It's like you start to like see, oh, a lot of what I'm dealing with is very universal. And I think that in itself was very freeing and very healing.
Yeah, and I think kind of the setup culturally or where we are in the technology is just it's set up for loneliness and comparison, right? Like, oh, we're all in this together, but like, oh, look at Johnny's beautiful life, or Mary so got all this, and they're posting it all over Instagram and all that kind of stuff, and it can make you feel alone. And it's interesting. I was talking with someone else on this podcast, and he was saying culturally, America, and I would imagine Canada, this is true too, that like we're the people that left our communities and said we could go somewhere where we don't know anybody. All we need is a little bit of land and some tools, and we'll make our way. And so now you have this whole kind of community of people, and I really noticed it. Paulo and I spent a couple months in Portugal last year. He was doing online school, and just the difference in the level of community there than you see here. It's like really, really intense and really noticeable. And I never thought of that. So I think even for Americans and Canadians, like we have even, maybe a little harder slog on this being, being isolated and supposed to be self-sufficient and comparison. And, we have all these blessings too. Like, do we feel okay to be, mopey about something in our life when like, look at all those people in, Africa or, wherever that are struggling a lot more. So yeah, it's just an opportunity for compassion and, I think you and I both have talked about the experience of psychedelics in our life. And so you told me that you, went to the jungle and did ayahuasca, and that was sort of life changing. So like, what was that like and what shifted and how did that play into your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how deep do I want to go into this?
Deep as hell. Come on.
I also realized though that I didn't answer your question about like how to not like kind of like project on other people's path. I'll just quickly, it's very quick, touch on it of like, I really feel like my goal when I'm working with people is to just really help them discover their own path. And like when I'm working with someone, my goal is to have attunement, not have an agenda.
Right.
And so it's like, how can I attune to what's happening for them and really support them and like what's their path and like how do I just help them to see more clearly of like what's their wisdom from within them and like what path are they on. And I feel like I feel really conscious of that. I'm not like putting my path on them. And I mean, in correlation with the next question, like I would never like tell someone I think you should go drink ayahuasca. Like if they ask me about it, then I'm happy to like tell them, give them more information, ask them more questions about what they're looking for. And then, I'm happy to like make certain recommendations or give information, but I'm not like, yeah, this is what you need, go do this.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody should be doing it, especially with psychedelics. And I do, just on your thing about the path and not projecting it, earlier you mentioned curiosity. And I think that's like a really good way, right? If you're actually curious about them and not wanting, projecting your own path would mean you're kind of in your head, right?
Totally. And that's, I feel really fortunate. I feel like I've been a very curious person since a very young age. And, I just grew up being very observant and watching humans, watching, people in my life and really trying to understand why they're acting the way they're acting. And, and I feel like that serves me a lot when I'm working with people. I'm very curious about who's in front of me and I think that definitely serves in terms of like, yeah, having like not putting my stuff on them. It's like, who are you? Like, what's,
Right.
what excites you? What brings you alive? And just, I really enjoy that part of my work, like getting to know people.
Yeah. So, okay, we're not hoisting ayahuasca on people, but they ask you something about it.
So, I mean, okay, I'm trying to like be a little more. So, do you want to know like what brought me to it, or like what was the experience?
Yeah, I guess like what's the setup for making that decision? I mean, that's kind of a big decision, like in your life, and then what happened? You know,
I mean, it was I definitely like went for it. I went straight to Peru, and you know, had the privilege of getting to work with 5 Shipibo indigenous female healers, and I really, it was interesting because I started learning about ayahuasca when I was in naturopathic medical school in our herbal medicine class.
Wow.
So one of our teachers at the time, she was great. She was telling us about one of her experiences, and we were learning about alkaloids and certain psychoactive psychedelic plants and how they can be used for medicinal purposes. So that was kind of the first like ping in my mind of like, that sounds really interesting. Curiosity spiking. But still like, that sounds really intense. Like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. And then when I was in third year, when you're in third year, you're starting up in clinic and you're doing, like your internship basically. So you're classified as like a secondary in clinic. So you're working with actual patients, but you're like kind of the assistant to the primary who's in fourth year. And my primary, she became a dear friend of mine. Her name's Tanya Kamonen, so last name now. And I would like watch her work with people and be like, I want to like learn how to do what she's doing. It was like very, very like precise and had so much empathy and compassion. And I was doing what you probably shouldn't do as a clinician. I would like sit there and observe, and then all of a sudden, like my stuff would start to like emerge as she was, doing her thing. And I started having like almost like flashbacks or like memories popping up from when I was a child from some sexual abuse that I experienced. And then I would like dissociate. I didn't have language for this at the time. I was like, what the hell is happening? And we'd always do debrief after clinic, and I would always be like super checked out. And then I would drive my friend Tanya home after the clinic shift, and she'd be like, are you okay? Like, I noticed that like kind of checked out. Like, do you want to share what happened? And then, so I started opening up to her, and she was like, interesting. Like I had a sense that maybe that was something that was happening because some of the material that her clients were working with, her patients were working with. And then I was like, yeah, like this thing happened. I don't know. Like it kind of feels a little bit like a dream, but it's also very clear. And I'm having like very visceral feelings in my body.
So were you not like sure it happened at that point? Like
I was sure, but I was also like, this seems really weird to be like talking about it and like putting language to it, because it kind of felt like this distant thing in the corner I never wanted to go touch.
Yeah.
And so
all about that.
It was like, okay, well, this is coming now. And then she started telling me about her work with ayahuasca. And she was apprenticing at the time at Dr. Gabor Mate. And she was telling me all about like the stuff she was learning, the stuff she was doing. And I was like, wow, this sounds really powerful. And I could feel the shifts in her too, and could see the shifts and the changes. And so again, I'm very curious, but also like, this sounds really intense. Like, I don't know if I want to peek back. Like,
yeah, right.
And then fast forward time, became a primary fourth year clinician and like still doing my own talk therapy. And then I graduated naturopathic medical school, and it was the first time, because after your board exams, you don't get your license for a couple months because you have to wait to see if you passed. And I had a job lined up, but it was like the first time in my life I didn't have work and I didn't have school, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I was
like to go vomit in the jungle.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just party. Like, like, okay, I deserve this. I worked so hard. I became a doctor. Like, and I partied a lot and was like, but it was this, like, there was some part of me that knew that I was just like, was like, yeah, this is fun, but it's also like I would get into these really big shame spirals after, and I just like couldn't. There was like almost like an inability to be with myself when I was sober, and like I didn't have any like accomplishments that I was striving towards that I could like that would satisfy this like emptiness that I was feeling. And like there was a certain kind of like anxiety and depression that I was feeling. I couldn't quite put words to it. And so I was just numbing with alcohol and drugs and just like, partying a lot. And then, but knew that like, okay, this isn't good for me. Like I was basically like living this double life, and it was really, I was like riddled with shame, but then that would make it worse, the cycle. And then I hit like a rock bottom place. It was, I can't remember exactly where on the timeline, somewhere in 2016. And I actually got assaulted. I got beat up, and I was like very drunk when it happened. I don't really remember it, but I like fractured 2 ribs, separated the shoulder. Got
like a
really...
mugging or something? Or...
No, it was outside of a bar.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, I don't remember. Apparently, I was like flipping my hair and with person's face and told me to stop. And I didn't stop. And then I guess they threatened me, and then I don't know. And they basically just took me out.
Wow.
Again, I don't remember any of it. I just like woke up in my bed and was in so much pain and like very confused. And that felt like it's like a spiritual 2x4 of like, what are you doing? This is like not who you are. This is not the path that you are meant to go down. And it was just, I was in this like kind of crisis of lost and confused. And I had really bad post-concussive syndrome too. So I was like, just not in a good headspace. And then still doing talk therapy and like not getting anywhere. Like I haven't discovered somatic therapy yet. And then I ended up, again, I probably won't go into too much detail about this, but I ended up going to a Grateful Dead show with friends and did LSD for the first time. And that changed so much for me. I feel like I got to peer back into this little dark corner and got to see little bits of what was there. And also after that, I was like the happiest and the most joyful and lightest I think I felt in years, like maybe since I was a kid. And I couldn't figure out was like, what happened to my brain? Like something major happened to my brain and I want to learn more about it. So I went to the like alternative bookstore in Vancouver, bought a bunch of books on psychedelics and theogens. And then there was a book on ayahuasca that I like was kind of calling my name. So I bought that and just started reading and watching documentaries and just learning all that I could learn about psychedelics and how they impact your brain and your mind and trauma. And then it was around that time, I also read the book on ayahuasca. I started having very vivid dreams about this plant. And I was like in kind of a jungle setting. And it felt so different than any other dream I've ever had. It was like almost like something was communicating very clearly to me. And I couldn't quite understand what was going on, but I knew it was important. And then around the same time, that same friend from school, Tanya, she was like working at an ayahuasca center in Peru. And she reached out and was like, I think she had said like, I had a dream about you. And I had a dream about her. And she was like, how are you doing? And I started opening up to her about what had just been going on. And I was like, I think I'm ready for ayahuasca. And that was also shocking when that came out of my mouth because I was like equally terrifying as like true. And she was like, wow, I've been waiting for you to say that. There's an all women's retreat that's going to be happening at the center she's working at. Like I'll be there and there'll be 5 indigenous Shipibo maestras that will be leading. It's all women. There's going to be 20 other, people from all over the world, women, all women. And I think you should come. Like, okay. Yeah. Like it was like the clearest yes. Talked to my dad about it. And it was just, I was like, this is what I've been struggling with. And this is what I think I need to help me. And he was like, of course, like support you, I'll read up a little bit about it. Are you sure you want to do this?
Right.
And I was like, yes, this is it. It was so clear and felt like, now when I hear people talking about the calling, that's definitely what it was. I felt very pulled in a way that, like, again, hard to articulate, but it's such a deep feeling. And it was everywhere in my world at that time too, which was very strange. Like there was like so many different conversations or like just experiences that I would have, interactions, like it was so in my face. And then as soon as I said yes and signed up, it was like it immediately started working on me, the energy of it. And changes started happening very quickly. And in terms of like my behavior changes, like, just stopping drinking alcohol because I knew that I needed to. And I think part of it was I was so terrified of like what would happen if I didn't stop. And I've just been really lucky too, in terms of, the people that have come in my life that, like Tanya, for example, like I feel like she really helped to prepare me in a way that really set me up for success. And I think too, I was at such a place of, I had tried all the talk therapy and I knew there was so much more in a subconscious place that I knew I wanted to go into. It was like I had gotten to a place where I had enough courage to go there.
Right.
And to know that this wasn't the path that I was supposed to be on, that I was on. To know that there was something more.
Right.
And it was so like, again, there was such a depth of conviction there and such a depth of clarity and deep knowing that this is what I was needing to do next, that like nothing else mattered. It was like, okay, I'm doing this. And I just knew like how deeply I had to respect this medicine too, from what I'd read. And then also it was just like, there was something in my like psyche that just knew that I needed to like take this really seriously and with a lot of respect. And then, yeah, I went down to the jungle and spent, I think it was a 9-day retreat with 4 ceremonies. And, I'd really only taken a little bit of LSD before. So this was like, it was
jumped right into the deep end of the pool.
It was really like, that's kind of been my style in the past. No, I'm just going to full throttle, like, middle of the jungle. So I had to take the boat and then like, like hike into the jungle. Like it was, it was pretty like out there in terms of, like looking back and like, wow, that was brave. Like,
yeah,
and that's kind of how desperate I was though. I really wanted to feel better so badly that I was willing to kind of do whatever it would take. And I knew that this approach was going to be right for me. And again, how did I know that? I'm not sure. There was some sort of depth of resonance there that I felt with like being with a plant, like being with nature in that way. And, something in the depths of my spirit was resonating with this form of healing, this modality. And yeah, it changed everything when I did that retreat. Even just my first ceremony was like, it was so challenging, but it was so incredible too. I just really, it's really amazing to actually like think back, because now it's been, almost 10 years. And so it's just been, it's been such an adventure since then. Yeah. And like not easy, like very challenging path too. And, when you say yes on this path, it's like, it's not the easiest, but I'm just so grateful that I was so pulled to that. And because, I could have gone down other roads of like, traditional kinds of rehab or who knows what. And like where I was now, exactly, totally. Yeah. And it like felt like it flipped a lot of switches in my brain. And I think, I was talking with my husband on the way over, and I think one of the biggest things that I feel like it gave me was this like this felt experience of love and a reconnection with myself that I didn't even know how disconnected I was. And I remember after the first ceremony sitting in my tambo, like the little hut that you get to stay in, and just like looking at my hands, looking at my face in the mirror. And it was like, wow, like I actually cared about myself. The first time I really cared about myself in a way that felt very genuine and not from a place of like, I care about myself because my parents care about me and I care about them.
Right.
Like, I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to let them down. I don't want to hurt them. So I'm going to like take care of myself in this way. Or, I've had so much conceptual knowledge of how to be healthy in terms of like all my studies, so I knew like what supplements to take, what foods to eat, what kind of exercises to do. But again, it was all conceptual. It was like, oh, okay, I'm doing these things because I think I have to do these things in order to like be healthy. But then I was also doing these things that were extremely destructive and abusive almost to myself. And so it was this like experience of just like, oh, wow, like I think I'm having the felt experience of what love is for the first time, like in terms of like really feeling that in my system. And there was one of the moments in one of the ceremonies where I was like, it sounds strange, but I was like back to being a baby. And I was like getting to experience my mother's love, which is so profound, her love for me. But I was getting to feel it in a way that I don't think I could really, like with my explicit memory, really feel it.
Right.
Because there was too much like dissociation and dysregulation in the way from my, like in terms of how far back I can remember. So it was like it cleared out these blockages, and I was able to like tap into this place of like, oh my God, and like seeing how much actual, it's like how much disrespect I had shown my body, and then like getting to a place of like, oh, I actually like want to treat this body with a lot of respect and a lot of love. And that's like everything changed after that retreat. Like I, started, it was just like my approach was so different. Okay, I'm going to like do yin yoga tonight. And like, and it was actually coming from a place of not forcing myself because I think that's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
It was a genuine desire of like, oh, I want to care for this body and I want to care for myself as a human and, because I matter. And yeah, so those were like some deep fundamental pieces that I really got from the first ayahuasca retreat.
And so you had realizations, but you also had actual behavior change.
Oh yeah.
Like dramatic.
Yeah.
And then is that like, are you on an ayahuasca path? Like, are you continuing to do it, or was that sort of like your experience with ayahuasca?
Well, I after that, it's kind of like I definitely have an intense side to myself, and when I get passionate about something, I tend to go all in, and so I dove in pretty deeply into that world, and I ended up going back to Peru again that summer and doing a dieta with Bob and Selena and doing more ceremonies. And yeah, I don't think we'll go into that today, but there was some experience that I had where I learned a lot from like, that was probably too much too soon. Probably took too much, in terms of like my nervous system. I didn't have the understanding I have now of my nervous system. And I just kind of blew myself out with like taking too much, not really honoring how sensitive I actually am. And a lot of that work, I mean, it's all perfect in terms of like what came out of it, because I really needed to like put myself back together after probably drinking too much ayahuasca. And that's when I really discovered somatic therapy and really dove in deeply to that. I mean, I was in a place where I was so open, and like, I feel like ayahuasca was like helping to unfreeze myself. And so I was starting to unthaw and starting to feel things that I hadn't felt in a long time, positive and negative. And it was really overwhelming. And I didn't have enough tools to be like, I didn't have enough capacity to be with it. Started to have panic attacks. Like I was scared to leave my apartment. Like there was a lot of like fear that was coming in at that time. I'm like, too much. I was like seeing spirits. Like there was a lot of like that it opened for me that I don't think I was quite equipped for.
Right.
And so I really, it was like by necessity, I was seeing a somatic therapist, and, it was a lifesaver at the time. And then I was like, well, this is really helpful. Like, I'm going to get trained at this.
Right. So it's on brand for you.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to study this. And even doing the training also was like, just furthering my, depth of, knowledge in my own self. Like my body basically has been my biggest teacher.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it's like, you know, yeah, I'm trying to think of like where, like, yeah, that was like the main part of like, I definitely like was really going strong down that path. And then I was like, okay, I need a breather. And so I think it was 2019, I took a 5-year break from ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with other things and, getting trained myself in different modalities, psychedelic modalities. And then I returned in 2023 back to ayahuasca.
Mm.
And that was profound. It was like I was very scared going back because I had like a pretty intense, my last ceremony before I took that 5 years was pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very scared to go back to it, but it was such a sweet reunion.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exactly I like looking back, I was like, makes sense. Like why I needed to take that 5 years. There was a lot of growing up I needed to do
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of just integration for those. I can't remember how many ceremonies I had done in like a 2-year span, but it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there was a certain kind of like recognition feels like from the plant spirit of like thank you for like taking time and integrating. And yeah, it was really a sweet reunion. And then I since then it's been once a year.
Interesting. I'm interested, because it's like, I think this is very Western, right? Like we get a little bit of something and we're like, it's this cure and we're going to just take more and more is better and all that. I'm very familiar with that terrain. But, I wonder with something like ayahuasca, as you start to develop your own intuition and, you were saying like the plant sort of thanked you for basically, almost realizing that the plant is your ally in your own journey. It's not giving you the answer.
Yeah. And,
like,
I say the plant and who knows, like it totally could be just my subconscious. It was
right.
like, or like a part of myself is like, thank you. Right. It's like, but that's the thing is like, I think within those, just however many years it's been, like one of the deepest teachings for me was like, it's all within you and like you are the medicine and it's really up to you. And, like these can be really strong, powerful tools that we work with in terms of ayahuasca, other plant medicines, other psychedelics. But it's like, and that's what I think I needed to see too, is like to take that time away from it and like just really put in this, day to day without any substances, energy of like, like working on like what I've spoken about before, this capacity, this ability to be with discomfort, this ability to be with fear or, just difficult emotions, ability to be with that kind of discomfort in the system and be able to not react or go into fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah. Can you actually just stay with it and stay present? And then in that space, can you like make a different decision in terms of instead of reacting or, so that I feel like that was like the day-to-day work that I needed to do. It wasn't like some plant was not going to, or some like psychedelic medicine was not going to give me that.
Right.
It can help. It can be like a good teacher in terms of like creating circumstances or situations where you are in a lot of discomfort and like, can you stay with it? Can you, be with it? And so I think that's a lot of what it's given me. But I think it's been in the moments where I'm not actually in ceremony. It's like I'm in the ceremony of life, just like ups and downs that we all go through.
Yeah, it's, kind of coming back to the hero's journey thing. I think with the psychedelics, from that lens, you can look at them like an ally, like they're there, they give you some wisdom and they point you in the right direction. But if you start to think that they're going to throw you on their back and carry you to the promised land, then you've kind of like lost the plot on psychedelics.
Out there that's
absolutely, yeah.
I think it's the only answer, and and I can speak to that because I was there. I was
Hmm.
like, oh, this is everything. Like, I
Right.
was totally like, this is the most important thing. And like, I was in a place where I was like, I'm going to move to the jungle and like, this is going to be my life. And then, life happened and that wasn't the case. Like, actually what happened was my niece got diagnosed with leukemia when she was 3,
Mm.
right around the time where I was like thinking about going back. And, it was like, now this is ceremony. How are you going to show up for your niece? How are you going to show up for your sister and her family? How are you going to be a presence that can be regulated and, hold what is needed to be held right now?
Hmm.
And then, also refer back to, like you said, these allies, like, ask for their support. And I still do that.
Hmm.
There's different plant, again, this can be very like abstract for a lot of people, but if you're a plant person, you'll probably get it of like, I have a lot of plant spirit allies that I call in often,
Mm.
that really feel like they support me in certain ways. And that to me is just like a cosmovision or like an ethos that I, like a worldview that I
Mhm.
see from that supports me. It's not for everyone, but that's something that for me has been a part of my healing. But
Mhm.
like you said, it's like, wait, it starts to become a trap if you think so, like this thing is going to be the one thing that's going to heal me. Well,
Yeah.
it's not that. It's like, it's a whole process. Like you were saying, like it's many things along the path. I think that's something I've learned too. It's just like, it's
And
many
it
different.
shifts at the time. Like it might be ayahuasca now, then maybe it's like sitting in nature and meditating, like that's the thing that's most
Or
important.
dancing
Yeah.
or, singing lessons or whatever, it's like, it really depends. And that's like, one of my lens also is like, I really believe that, therapy and, medicine should be very individualized
Yeah.
in terms of, because everyone has their own unique path.
Yeah, 100%. So when we were doing the pre-interview, we talked a little bit about building capacity versus willpower. And you were sort of saying that you have a lot of willpower, you've done a lot of things, right? You've achieved a lot academically, but there was something that would still kind of take you out of your willpower.
Yeah.
And so like, what's the path from sort of being like acted upon by your nervous system versus more like having agency with choice, even when the alarm signals are kind of going
Right.
off?
Yeah. I think this really, comes down to the nervous system, which
Hmm.
I know you know a lot about and, has been a big part of your journey.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think that agency really comes from the nervous system. And, it's like what I had just mentioned about capacity, of like this ability to be with and not go into fight, flight, or freeze or react. And
Hmm.
it's like, can you actually pause and be with and maybe bring in some tools, like some nervous system regulation tools that can help to, center you in your brain and bring you more into like prefrontal cortex and like, in a place where you can really like be present and,
Hmm.
this place of agency. It's like, can you create enough space to be able to choose from a place that's, connected to your center where you are not in a place of fight, flight, or freeze or react. And in that space, can you make a decision from there? Because I think like, if I think back to a lot of my choices before I started doing this work, it was very much from like a reactive place
Hmm.
of like, okay, what's my parents gonna think? What are my parents gonna think? Or what are my peers gonna think? Or what's gonna allow me to have like the most respect? Or, it was a lot of like, what are people gonna think? And
Hmm.
that's, not unique to me, but that's unique to me in terms of what it was for me. And this like, I know also this place of insecurity of like, okay, I need this in order to feel more whole. And, it's like it comes from a place of, not necessarily deeply connected to who I really am. And I think like, I don't know, when I think about spirituality, that's like one of the things that I think about is like spirituality is becoming more of who you really are.
Yeah.
And like connecting deeply with this wisdom that lives within your body, within your system. Being able to like figure out what that even is, first of all. And then how do you recognize it? How do you listen to it? How do you get to a place within yourself where you can actually hear it? Again, I don't think you can really hear it when you're in a place of fight, flight, or freeze or react. It's like, it's when you're centered. It's when you're like connected to your body. You're in a place like, out in nature or whatever it is for you that helps to get you there. And that's where this wisdom starts to come in, and like making decisions from that place versus like this kind of reactive place.
No, I totally love this. I'm interested in like how you might explain this to somebody, because I think it's important for people to like understand a little bit about the system which they're trying to interact with, their own nervous system, all these things. And so like, the way this is a layman's, but this is just my view. It's like the nervous system is, it's like an alarm system that can be wired or miswired a little too much, and to like understand that it's not infallible, that it's like, okay, experiences change it.
Yeah.
And so we might actually be getting these fear signals that are not like appropriate to the actual situation. That's kind of what trauma is. But I guess I'm interested in how you might explain to somebody. Let's say somebody shows up, right, and they're struggling with whatever it is, anxiety, depression. They haven't done anything. Like, I think it would be very helpful for somebody to have told me, like, well, hey, like, all right, well, what we're going to try to do is like, we're going to try to get you a little to work with your nervous system, and that's going to take a while, and then these things will happen. But there's also like shadow work that you need to do that's separate than that. And like, it all interacts. And, as somebody who's just, and the reason why I'm starting this is I felt like lost in this system of showing up at people's individual treatments, and all of them are great. The MDR is great, whatever it is, and the practitioners typically of those treatments believe in them because that's their life's work or whatever. And then you're pinging around thinking like, oh my God, I hope this works. That didn't work. I'll try that. That didn't work. And it can also be a thing where you're not even realizing how much progress you're actually making because you're wanting it to work, which to me meant shut these fucking fireworks off. So how do you explain it to somebody who's just come in your office and flustered? Like, what's this journey going to be like?
Yeah, great question. I feel like this is one of the art of, therapeutic work is like, how do you explain it in a way that they can really get it, and also, explain it in a way that's realistic. And I think that I know that I've had to really work on like creating an explanation in a way that is managing expectation. So I think that's the biggest thing is like people will come in to a session or an appointment and have all sorts of expectations. And a lot of the time it's like really managing that. And, again, I can really only teach from my own personal experience. And I know for myself that it's taken a long time and it's ongoing, and there's still stuff I'm still like continuing to, practice and work on. But there are moments where I can reflect and be like, oh, wow, yeah, like I've come a long way since like 5 years ago in this particular area. And so I think like really emphasizing like every person's journey is unique. There's some similarities and there's some tools that work, for everyone in some ways, but it can work in different ways. And so just really emphasizing like the uniqueness of one's path, and that it's not emphasizing also that it's not like one thing that's going to be the thing that's going to like heal you. Right. It's like, it's a journey. It's a process. It's like, it's multiple things over long periods of time, really like emphasizing this journey of patience. Like it can take a long time sometimes, and you won't notice, the shifts until you get to a place you can reflect back, or, someone might reflect back something to you and you're like, oh, I don't like do that thing anymore. But it can be surprising because it's not always like so bam in your face. Like you're past this now. Like it can take time, and it can take multiple kinds of different modalities and tools. And I really encourage people to really pay attention to, what resonates for them. Like I did EMDR, I think like twice to 3 times, and it didn't resonate for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, one of the modalities that I was like, maybe it was a practitioner I was working with at the time or where I was at, just didn't resonate. And that's the other thing too, is like, not everyone is ready for certain modalities.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not the one to decide if someone's ready. It's their own inner intelligence that decides. And that can be hard as a practitioner also to like tune in, like, is someone ready for this? So that's also part of the art of like, with experience, you start to learn little cues to see like, okay, maybe they are ready for this step.
Mm-hmm.
And like really, again, like very individualized. So like really seeing like where someone's at. And I think this comes with experience of like the more people you sit in front of, the more people you work with, you start to learn different like how I say like cues from people in terms of, say where they're at in terms of like really understanding their nervous system or their bodies or their like inner wisdom that comes forward. Like someone might come in and be like, I'm so anxious. Like, then you might ask, like, okay, well, like, how do you know you're anxious?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I don't know. I just am. Like, that would tell me a certain thing about that person of where they're at.
Right.
Or if someone was like, well, like, my heart starts to race and I get sweaty palms and I start to like feel like I get intrusive thoughts, like that person has a lot more self-awareness and connection with what's actually happening in terms of sensations in their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a little more ahead in terms of like this connection with the body. Not that it's like a race or anything. It's just like, where's someone at? And then where am I going to go in?
Mm-hmm.
Because someone comes in and they really have no idea like how to describe their experience of anxiety. They just know to call it anxiety. I'm going to have to work in a different way
Mm-hmm.
to like help them to understand, just start to learn the language of their body, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that can sometimes be slow. And so, there's sometimes like some people come to work with me and it's really fast because they're in a place where they've already done, say, like years of talk therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So they have such a depth of conceptual knowledge of like their story, their path. And it's really, and they also have like, a lot of awareness of
Mm-hmm.
what's happening to them. So we can move a lot quicker in some ways. And then I have people come to me and they don't have any sort of awareness. And
Right.
we have to go a lot slower. Sometimes we're just like, tell me what it feels like to like feel the sensation of your pants underneath your hands. Like
Mm-hmm.
what is that sensation? And like literally just like starting to connect with the system and the body. So yeah, it really depends on, the situation, who's coming in and, but I do my best in say like an initial session to explain all those things. Like
Mm-hmm.
this might take a long time. You might get frustrated. You might think it's not working. And again, like if this isn't working for you, let me know so that
Mm-hmm.
we can be in like a co-creation with this. And like, I'm not here to like put any sort of, anything onto you or force you into anything. It's really, I'm here to like guide you and meet you on the path and pull from different tools and see what works, what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't know if did that answer?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's, to me, for me, it was a concept of getting values around the journey and not getting so much into the details. Like, so that was like, for in businesses that I've started, you have values for them and, I've done that process before. And I just created for my healing curiosity, courage, and action.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, okay, like if I engage like that over time, so curiosity, there's all kinds of modalities, also what's going on with me, because new stuff is always coming up and I don't know what it is. And so if I can, use those things for the rest of my life, like I can weave through whatever is like actually happening. And who knows, maybe I will need like, deep ayahuasca, or maybe it'll be the somatic thing or whatever it is. But if I'm sort of, thinking like, okay, like this is important to me, so I'm going to take some time to like understand what's happening with me and understand what's out there, what's available. Then I can, have the courage to actually do some of it. And then the action part is like really, that's what I think, this is an everyday process. If you have like the nervous system, like we both have had some pretty heavy things happen to us. And if you have the kind of nervous systems that we were blessed with, like you need to work on them on a daily basis. They backslide is my experience unless you keep working with it. But it's really like, it kind of it's an inspirational thing too. It's like, okay, this is my like effort and life's work. And as I've gotten more into I'm really starting to see like actually me doing this is not just like some selfish Steve thing. It's for Apollo and Leah and Athena and the people that I interact with. And so, I love that you're like kind of telling people like, take ownership of your journey. Like that's the real key. And yes, use me as a resource. I'm smart. I know a lot of things, but they're on it forever, like long past the time they're working with you, likely.
Right. And that's one of my, like, one of the beautiful things about, the years that I've been in practice is I've gotten to work with so many people, and I've gotten to see people for really intense periods of time. And then they go and like, and then we might reconnect years later and I get to see like, the amazing transformation they've been through. And it's them doing it.
Right.
Often we'll have people be like, thank you so much. Like you did such a, support along this path. And I'm like, of course, it's been such an honor to be along your path. It's one of the deepest privileges to walk with someone in those places. But it's them doing it. It's them doing the inner work and having the courage and the fortitude to continue and to move forward. And yeah, I'm there. And I'm like, pulling different tools out and like experimenting with different things depending on, sometimes it's very intuitive. I would say informed, intuitive. But they are the ones that I'm getting the feedback from them on. I'm again, when I said attunement, I'm doing my best to attune to their inner intelligence. So I'm really trying to read cues. I'm really trying to like have a felt sense, of like what's working, what's not working. And then also just having dialogue of like, is this working or is this not working for you? Like, how are you feeling about this? And checking in. And I really think it is such a co-creation, and I'm not doing anything to them.
Right.
Like, they are the ones that are healing themselves. It's really like I might provide information or ask a particular kind of question or, provide a certain kind of environment or container that can support that kind of renegotiation in the nervous system, or, an insight that can come in that can change a lot for them. But they're the ones that are doing that. Their willingness to be there. And I can tell when someone's not willing. And, I don't really, it's like, I'm at a place where I don't really feel like I have the time and space. In some ways, like if someone is showing up and they're really not like wanting to go into this kind of work, and like,
what's the point?
And like I'll ask sometimes, like, why are you here? Like if I'm really seeing that they're really resistant. And some people don't want to change. That's something that I really come to a place of acceptance too, like working with certain people. I'm like, I don't actually know if they want to like.
Well, it's interesting because you're kind of like working up against like the culture that we deal with, right? I mean, I think that we live in this culture where it's like discomfort is bad, get it away immediately. And you talked about a lot, actually, like the wisdom is like, okay, kind of wise working with this discomfort. Like, can I handle this? Like, what is it trying to teach
what's
me?
The message?
And is it is it not like actual discomfort related to the situation, which is like trauma, like over, like, oh, this isn't really happening. But so you have people that are coming in and they're new to this game. So like, how do you kind of give them like small practices that they can slowly build upon? What's like a go-to move for somebody?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on where someone's at, but I feel like go-tos are always like, just like very easily accessible nervous system practices of like, again, like capacity doesn't just happen overnight. It's like it's built over time, and it's like it's a muscle. It's like you're having to strengthen it over and over again, similar to like you go to the gym. And it might not feel like it's doing anything or working at first, but over time you start to be like, oh, that's actually helpful. So yeah, some of my go-tos, like some really easy ones are like orientation. So like just really teaching someone about what it means to orient when they're in a place. They start to feel overwhelmed. They start to feel like once they have that awareness of like what it means to like go into fight, flight, or freeze, like, so to get really dysregulated, orientation is as simple as like, look around your space and name 5 things that you see. Or like and I'll get them to do it for me. Like, and sometimes when I'm working with people, I'll be able to see like, oh, they're dissociating right now. And so I'll do something like, oh, let's just take a breath. And like, can you just look around the space right now and just tell me 5 things you see? And so I'll practice it with them. So they have the felt experience of what it's like in real time, so that they can take it out into their real life and actually practice it. And then another simple one is just like, feel your feet on the ground. I think this was one of the first ones I learned when I was actually a clinician.
It's bringing you in the present moment and then into your body, right?
Yeah. So feel your feet on the ground. Like, what does it feel like to like rub your feet on whatever surface you're on? And again, it's just like a little cue of like, come back to your body, or like feel the material of your pants, or feel the material of your shirt. Like, what does that feel like? And so that's like another quick one of just like popping into the body. And then there's working with breath. So that's a very easy one too. It's just like, you can do 5, 5, 5, or you like breathe in for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 5. I usually like to have a longer exhale because that helps to stimulate the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which helps to bring me more into that place of presence. Whereas the sympathetic nervous system activation is that like fight, flight, or freeze.
Is the hold considered part of the exhale? Like it's 5, 5, 5, a longer exhale because there was a 5 hold.
I guess you could. Well, no, it's more of like the act of actual exhaling.
Yeah, that's the way I understood. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is.
No,
if you breathe in for a shorter amount of time, then you breathe out.
Yeah.
And then is there any magic too? I mean, I just do it like this. I breathe in through my nose and I breathe out through my mouth, just because mostly I can purse my lips and extend the exhale easier.
Yeah. So there's so many different like ways of, and there's like people who've done a lot of research on different forms of breath work in terms of like what it gives you when you like, purse your lips and just breathe out your mouth versus breathing out through your nose. And I won't even attempt to go into the science of that right now, but it's really, it's like the goal is to have a longer exhale, most likely through your mouth and like inhaling through your nose. And my husband, he likes to do I think it's 6, 6, 8. So count in for 6, hold for 6, out for 8. And so, I mean, anything that where you're like pausing, you're just bringing awareness to your breath too, and counting, that's going to even help just to like shift your awareness.
And what's the deal that there's this artificial sigh or something that I read there's something different about that when you fill up and then you a little again because you're expanding parts of your lungs and that second one that's getting more air or something. But that's a Huberman deal. I think you talked about that a lot. And is there and I use that. And I think it's just like people, it's not this magic. Like breathe out longer than you breathe in. You can do it. I mean, and those things work and they don't work instantly, but over time you start to realize I have more agency with my nervous system.
Exactly. And even just the pause, like to stop to even think to do something else is really important and key.
Yeah, that's funny. We were talking about building this capacity and agency and whatnot. When I was quitting drinking, at least the first time, but I was working with my man's group leader and he was like, don't stop drinking. But what I'd ask you to do is before you drink, like tap into yourself and like get a sense of like why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I realized that about 80% of my drinking was related to just nervous system regulation. Like I didn't really love wine when I came home. That was just like the time of my body. And at first I just used to be like, okay, I'm going to numb out a little bit here. And then like one time I was like, oh, I'll just do the breath instead of numbing out. And then the next time I drank again, but it was like actually just building awareness, like, and giving me like, I am choosing to drink to drown my feelings. Okay. Just do that with awareness. But eventually once you have that awareness, that's the it starts to unravel, and you can be like, do I really want it? And, I think you talked about these compulsive behaviors before and feeling all these shame spirals. And, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, especially like with alcohol or whatever. Like, is what I'm doing like something that I'm numbing, or am I just comforting myself? And I just sort of generally, like, if I at the end of it am glad that I did it, like I love Ted Lasso, like when I watch his show, it's like, I'm like glad I watched it. I don't feel bad about it at all, but I can feel shitty, and I can just like numb out on television for 3 hours and I feel like shit on that. So like, it's the same exact thing sort of, but it's like, what is it? And just start to be like, and then give yourself a break. Yeah, I just numbed out, like it was a hard day, but I did it. At least I know it.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're like pointing at too is like this cultivation of more and more mindfulness and like having awareness. And I think that's a huge part of this path of changing behavior is building that muscle of mindful awareness of like just what you said, like, can I like actually pause and have a moment? Because I think when you have awareness, it actually allows for there to be a different possibility of change. Like it allows there to be a moment where you can make a different decision.
Right.
And whether you make the choice or not, that's doesn't matter in terms of this conversation. It's like, what's important is like cultivating that muscle of mindful awareness. So like, okay, like I feel really nervous right now, or I feel really anxious. And I know that if I do this thing, it's going to help soothe that. And then also then you can take it a step further. Okay, but if I do that, like, what am I going to feel like in 2 hours? Or what am I going to feel like tomorrow? So like also having awareness of the future, of consequences. And I know that has helped myself in the past too with behavior change.
Yeah, I think, we talked about the psychedelic thing, and it's almost, to me, it's like they're inspirations to get to the mindful awareness part. I think plenty of people could skip the psychedelics part. Like I couldn't, like I did 10-day silent meditation retreats and all these things. And I still like, it was really, and I'd been to a lot of dead shows, and I'd done a lot of psychedelics, just like partying, but I started to do them for medicine work now. But really what I've noticed is as I've done them more, I've started to do them less. I'm starting to do all the substances less. But they are this great inspiration. And I do really find them as like, when I've been doing my stuff recently, it's like I am narrating to myself what I should be doing to be the man that I want to be. And it's not like it doesn't change that much. Like I don't need to do psychedelics every 3 weeks to get a new narration, something happens in 6 months or a year.
Hang up the phone.
Yeah.
Even if you go and like take more psychedelics, it's going to give you the same message of like, okay, Steve, you got to like continue to have this awareness around like, is this action helping you? Or like, is this something that like a part of the man that you want to be? Like, I think we get these like frameworks, and it's like we really can see like, does this fit within like who I want to be?
And I think that's really good. They do help you clarify, and it's your own inner wisdom, but the man or woman that you want to be, right? Like that becomes like, that's what I think is the magic. Like, okay, like I see clearly and I believe it. Like it's, the chemicals fire, and like whatever happens, like I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's right for me. I believe that. And then you start doing the stuff to make that happen.
Right.
The work of it or whatever. And so, we've talked a lot about, your whole path and everything, but like currently you're pregnant, right? And you got there through IVF.
Yeah.
And I can see there's a lot of wisdom about to emanate just from that size. So like, what's happening right now for you, and what are you learning from this experience?
Yeah. I mean, I maybe should have mentioned at the beginning, I've done like a little breathless. Find something. I'm not.
We will put like a little disclaimer. Dr. Jenny's pregnant. Just so you know.
I'm a little over 15 weeks pregnant with a baby girl, which is very exciting. It feels like just such a dream come true. It's something I've known so clearly since I was little. It's like never wavered, always known that I want to be a mother. And then life has its plans for me in terms of, I always thought it was going to be so easy. And, because I had a sense that I was actually quite fertile and just, I put in so much energy and so much time and education and work around learning how to support my body physically, how to balance my hormones, how to get myself in like the optimal state for fertility. And then, I chose to marry my partner, Forrest, and turns out he had an issue with his body. And so that was very confronting. I was like, okay, I chose to marry this person, this wonderful man, and have a child with him, and it's not happening. And it had been like, I think about a year and a half, just like every month, like, why isn't this happening? Like, and then, like, okay, I think it's time to start to get some, like, investigate this. And I really actually was like scared that it was my body because I'd had a lot of chronic health issues in the past. And so, I started out I went to a fertility clinic, did all the tests, and turns out I am very fertile. I have like really a lot of eggs.
I get a lot of Tennessee Valley energy from you right here.
Dick full, like I think it's from my mother's side, really strong hormones. And then my husband did sperm test, and it was, I still remember the moment of, like seeing the number, and I knew enough to know that that was not a good number in terms of the count. Extremely low. And it didn't make sense because his hormones were really high. He's someone who has his testosterone was in like the 700s, like, and he's 15 years older than me. And so, it was like, this isn't adding up. And like, no issues, anything like health wise. And so, it's confusing. Like, is this actually right? Like, these numbers are so low. And so he started investigating more. Then they found that in his testicles, there was basically blockages that were preventing the sperm from getting out into the semen. And so they wanted to operate, but then like we read it a lot into like the research around that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it makes it worse.
Right.
So, it was like, it was devastating. Like, okay, this is not good. Like probability of us conceiving naturally was extremely low. And just coming to this place of like, okay, what are our options? And his counts were not even enough to be able to do IUI, which is intrauterine insemination, which is like, basically they take his sperm, they get all the good ones, and then they insert it kind of like with a turkey baster.
That doesn't sound as much fun.
No. So we weren't even a candidate for that. And so, there was a lot of like heartbreak and just like, like I had such a vision, and we had been so intentional with this whole journey and process, and like, really calling in this little one and like doing a lot of like really intentional and just like getting to a place where we were really ready, and it just wasn't happening. And then once we got this news, it was just like, oh no. I think our only option is IVF. And, like financially, that's like not a good option. And I was just, I was like trained to, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I was like, I have to go through IVF. And it wasn't my body where the issue was. My body was the one that was going to have to go through all of the surgeries and medications, the injections. And so I was, again, really confronted with like choices and head versus heart. And like my heart was very much like, no, I want to have children with this man. And so making that choice, and it's like, okay, like this is what I'm being dealt. And, really wanting a baby so bad. So like, okay, let's go on this journey. And what a journey it's been. I think we've been extremely lucky in terms of like our results that we had, and with, our numbers of embryos. And I think because my body, I did all this work to get my body into the place that I did. And I also was giving my husband a ton of different, supplements, and he was making a lot of lifestyle adjustments as well. And I feel like I became almost like an expert in fertility in the last like 2.5 years or so, maybe even 3 years now. And I think because I put in so much intention and energy beforehand, same with my husband, like we did have such great success. And it was also really challenging, just the whole physical and emotional journey of it, of having to inject myself with hormones and then go through a surgery where I'm put under and they're removing my eggs and then combining them with his sperm. And then I had to have another surgery after that because you can like get polyps that can form because of the medications, and they need to remove those or else it can impact the transfer success. And then just like the constant like waiting game is like, if anyone's gone through IVF, they'll understand. It's just like there's these moments where you're just waiting. Like, okay, how many embryos made it to this phase? Right. How many are in this phase? And then genetic testing, how many made it through that step? And then even just like waiting on once you get the transfer, like, did it stick? And, we were very, very fortunate. Our first transfer worked. And
oh, wow, cool.
Yeah. And so we, but again, like it's been such a journey. I feel like the main things that it's taught me, definitely patience. Like, I wouldn't say I'm the most patient person, but I feel like I've had a lot of life experiences that have really grinded me in a way to like cultivate more and more patience, and also surrender and trust. I feel like it was very interesting to have this scenario where I did as much as I could do in terms of controlling my own body and environment, but the issues with my husband, and I can try to control him. It's like, it always works. Yeah. So, it was like, okay, that's out of my control. I can't change him or fix him, however I like imagine I would want to. Like, this is a reality. So I had to let go of so much control. And just also like, once the eggs are out, it's like it's in the lab's hands. Like, right. I got no control of that. And like, even with the transfer, like I can do as much as I can around like, getting my nervous system in a calm place and like, eating in a way that's going to help bring a lot of blood flow to my uterus. So like, it's like weird smoothies to like make the uterus more sticky. Like, again, I don't know if that actually helped, but it did work.
There's a baby in there.
So it's like I can control what I can, but then it's like a certain amount of just completely letting go and surrendering and trusting. Like, if we are meant to have a baby, this will work. And right. in this, in this way. And it also, I feel like, gave me so much more compassion and empathy for other couples that are going through this, or even not couples, just people who decide to do it on their own, which I know some women that have done that, and just like deep respect, like bowing. Like,
yeah, that sounds like a lot to do this alone.
Yeah. Oh my God. And we were so lucky. Like, we only had to do one round, which, is like not that common. Yeah. Like, a lot of people have to do multiple rounds. And I started having a lot more conversations with other women that had been through this, and like hearing their stories. I'm like, holy shit, like the capacity of some humans that have gone through this is incredible. Like, it's really like, feels like a warrior ship. Like, yeah. And like the strong desire to want to have a child, I think, is incredible too. That it can like carry you through all this heartbreak. And I feel like IVF journey, like it's like a thief of joy. Like, it just steals your joy over and over again until you like, get to the place where I'm at now, which is like, there's a baby in there. Right. There's a lot of joy with that, but it's like, it was like a grind. Like, it was like a relentless, like, just like working and like being with a lot of grief. And I still, that will come out sometimes too, where I'm like, I'll never know like what that will feel like to get pregnant the good old fashioned way. Right. And like, there was a lot of elements of like the surprise that were taken.
Right. Yeah.
So that, you can't get that back. It's like, and so it's a lot of acceptance too. I think that is like the key to surrender. Yeah. Is coming to a place of acceptance of like, this is where I'm at. these are the cars I've pulled and the choices I've made. And, you know, I'm someone I tend to like really take a lot of, different experiences that I've had. I'm like, okay, what's the opportunity here? And I feel like for myself now, I can actually help and support a lot of other people who have to go through this, or even just so like who are on the fertility journey. I feel like I've learned so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think this really comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of only going so, and so, I mean, to me, when I'm hearing this, I was like, seem like the perfect fertility doctor at this point, right? You've actually gone through it. You can, there's just, it's a different thing. I mean, we both had sexual abuse in our path and, I'm not sure that somebody who hasn't had that experience can truly empathize, right? Yeah. And probably it's pretty difficult for somebody who hasn't gone through this to really get down and, and dirty with it. And like you have this opportunity now to, live your own life's path, but also impact for so many people. I mean, I feel like you could really, because so much of like, we kind of talked about this at the generalized, like giving someone a lay of the land, right? Like now I'm sure when someone comes in, you'll be like, well, this is like it's the whole fucking deal, right? And it's not like it's not happening tomorrow and they have this pitfall and that pitfall and you're going to weave your way through it. And we don't know whether it's going to work, like, so, I mean, are you naturally just getting more, are you moving towards that work?
Yeah. I've definitely got some things in the works right now in terms of like so I really want to, like bring as much of my lived experience and education, to as many people as I can. Like I feel like sometimes the one-on-one work can be limiting in terms of like I really want to create something that is more accessible for anyone.
Yeah.
And so that's something I'm working on. It's just more of like an educational program and resource for people, and really, like it feels like the culmination of all the experiences I've been through of like this intersect of the nervous system and fertility and, bringing new life into the world and what that even means. And like, in terms of like, what kind of like really like getting clear with people, like what kind of a parent do you want to be? And like, what does that even mean to you? And like bringing more mindful awareness and intention into the experience and really like working with the mind, body, and spirit around this path of becoming a parent and bringing new life into the world. And that's the thing is like, I feel like I've learned so much from like understanding my own, developmental experience and trauma. And okay, now like what kind of environment do I want to create for this little one? And like, how am I going to do it? And like, and have to really give this little one like the best chance, that they can have in terms of their, nervous system and, presencing with them. And I feel like it's definitely already started in terms of like noticing like when I'm stressed out, I'm like, oh, like I think the baby's feeling this, in terms of like what we know about how the fetus and the baby really is the mother's nervous system. Like babies don't come in with a very like developed nervous system. They're very like tuning to the mother and to their surroundings. And so it's like, okay, this is a responsibility that I have now. And, I think there's a lot of like where people blame mothers, which I don't like. It's like, because there's already so much on, mothers in terms of
blame mothers mean
like in terms of like putting it all like if say like there's something wrong with a child, they'll often blame the mother. And I just see that a lot. And I feel like, most mothers and women are doing the best that they can. That's what they know.
Yeah.
And okay, how do I support as many, women and couples, and men, and people who are, non-binary too, like whoever wants to be a parent, like how do we create some awareness and some education and some tools around like how to approach this in a way that's really like bringing in this integrated approach of like mind, body, and spirit. And so, yeah, I'm definitely like working on a project right now that hopefully will be like, launched in the new year.
Nice.
We'll see. Is like my brain is not.
Yeah, I got the pregnancy brain and all that, so maybe we'll give you a little grace on timing. But so it's interesting. I mean, I feel like, when you were talking about always knowing that you wanted to have a kid, it brings up my daughter Athena, since she's been 5 years old. It's just like she wants to be a mom. Like that's what she wants to be. And she's extremely smart and talented. And she has a career. And she's like, I know I'll have a career, but if she could find a man that she felt comfortable with and all of that and do the thing, she would. And she's 19 years old. And so do you know what your daughter's name is going to be? By any chance? Are you willing to disclose that on the internet?
For sure.
Okay.
Sure. My husband has a very clear name. Sharon.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you could say that one, and then we'll know where's the pants in the family. No, but I guess I was trying to frame a wrap-up question around, to somebody like Athena's age or 25 or whatever, where they're just on this journey and they're orienting towards these things. If your daughter saw this when she was 25, like what are the kind of things you would want to just to wrap this whole thing up for, young women entering, adulthood and womanhood? What would you offer them?
Yeah, I love this question. It's a good question. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is really emphasizing just to trust your own body. Like to really trust the wisdom that your body has, that your body is wise, that it's good, and that it really knows what it needs and it knows what it wants. And you just need to really listen to it. And, really also a big one that I know I would want, like my daughter, when she's like 19 or in her 20s, to really know that, she's loved and that she is loved. And that, she really, just to really know that, like that will get her far, for her to know that she is loved and that she is loved. And, my hope is that she really knows who she is and really trusts that. And really, again, trust this, like this inner compass. Right. Really listens to it. And also, I really hope that she's doing things that she loves, like that really bring her life, that bring her a lot of joy and playfulness, like how she's dancing and singing and, whatever your daughter loves to do, like I know that she continues to do those things that bring her a lot of aliveness and joy and pleasure. Yeah. I think that that's so important. And really to trust herself, trust her path and, really where she is pulled in terms of that little voice inside. Again, it comes down to like trusting your body. The intuition. And do you think like it's specifically because we're talking about women and you said, to really trust her body. Do you think this is a more specific to women that comment or that would be universal? There's nothing specifically about growing up a woman where you're told to undermine your feelings or no, I think just for all people. All people. Yeah, because I think there is such a depth of wisdom that we all have within us. And when I say trust your body, it's really like trusting that wisdom of, these, like, it could even be like when you're in a situation and say you encounter someone, you're talking about, you start to get a weird feeling in your belly of like something feels wrong. Yeah. Trust that. Yeah. I think that's something probably you and I have because we've had predators in our life, and so I do think that that's a very valuable sort of, adaptation that I made. And I think also the trusting, that maybe all the wisdom isn't here in this moment. Yeah. It doesn't have to be here, right? Like it's, just trust that if you're open, like things will like happen and things will arise and you don't have to have it all figured out now. Totally. And like staying curious. Yeah. I think everyone can benefit from that. And also, like be kind to people, be kind to yourself
Yeah.
and lead from a place of compassion and, really try to put yourself in other people's shoes and, lead from a place of connection with the heart. And so really, yeah, coming from a place of love and kindness and compassion for yourself and also for, people that they encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And really that's like, this concept. 'Cause I know I was really lost when I was like 19, 20, 25, like all my 20s. Just very like, like lost, confused, depressed, anxious. And, I think it would have been helpful to just know that like I'm not actually lost. I'm just, overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I'm just I'm missing different tools. And there's a lot of people that I haven't met yet that are going to change my life in a big way. And really, again, like this concept of like not being afraid to be vulnerable. I think that's a big part of your message.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, speak to someone if you are feeling these feelings, like find someone you trust and open up to them or like find someone who has had a similar experience so you feel less alone. And then I think that's part of this like being lost that happens is like we just feel so alone in it. I'm like, I've got to be the only one that's feeling this, especially like you're scrolling on social media. Like,
yeah, right.
I think there's more people now that are, being more open about these things and, compared to when you were younger or when I was younger.
Yeah. And I think also just the kind of knowing, like, someone, if we're talking about someone 19, 20s, this is the time where you're fucking shit up, it's, yeah, it's like, okay, you don't have to have it all figured out. Life is long here. This is the time where you're going to have the experiences and the patterns to be able to see, because it's hard to grow until you've seen yourself replicate a pattern a few times, right? That happens to you do this one time in high school and then it doesn't happen again. But now you're 35, you're like, oh man, it's been the last 5 relationships. It's the same thing every time. Yeah. And then you can have some. So also just give yourself some grace to be like where you're at.
Yeah. Grace. Such a, key is like, giving yourself grace.
And, and then flipping it to old people like me. I mean, I also feel like, that I'm 56 and this has been the most growth fun. Like my 50s has been the time period where I felt the most growth, where I've learned the most about myself. And, I think in my perception that, I always kind of had it organized like financially that I would be kind of ready to do whatever I wanted to do when Apollo goes to college, which is next year. And, I think in my mindset before it was like, okay, I'm going to travel and party and this and that. And like really what's happened is like an entire new career that I don't know anything about and like a life's purpose that I didn't really have before. And so life is long and there's so many stages to it. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. Just live in the one you're at.
Yeah, it's such an adventure.
Yeah.
I think, it's like when you shared that, what stands out to me is that you have a lot of courage, right? And I think that also is something I would want for my daughter to know is like to have courage.
Yeah, you mentioned loving, like the more that I, just think about life, it's like the 2 things you need are love and courage. I mean, if you look back and you were like, I was loving and courageous, that's probably going to end up with you having an incredible life. Right? Yeah. And so, I mean, it gives you pretty much everything that you need. And you can build that muscle of courage, even with things like cold water explosion. Right. Like, okay, can I do, that's just a simple thing that you can do for 2 minutes and be like, oh, okay, now I can do it for 3 and, value those things and move towards them and don't give yourself too much shit for when you're, not doing well, a little turn.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we're only here, in this body, in this life, like, we just have this one life that we're consciously aware of.
Yeah.
And, I'm definitely someone who I really want to experience all there is to experience in this life. And I think that's part of the, like, the courage.
Yeah, well, you're in the midst of a big one, so enjoy that.
Yeah, talk to me like 2 years.
I mean, watching a bird this fucking intense. I was just like, holy. When I watched it, I was like, wow, that is
It's the most courageous thing that
oh,
we do.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
And the fact, like, I don't know what goes on. I mean, my daughter's, I mean, her labor was 40 hours or something. I mean, it was like, it started one morning and it ended the next day at like 6, and it was intense, and I could not believe that my wife would have another kid. I was like, wow.
My husband and I were talking about it recently because I had a pretty challenging first trimester, a lot of vomiting and nausea, and like just like fatigue and insomnia, and I think I had been like vomiting, and then he was asking me like, would you still want another child, like a second child? I was like, oh yeah, for sure. No hesitation. I'm like, what? It's insane. Like, there's some sort of it's like such a biological. I don't even know what it is. It's just it feels so primal. I actually used to be a doula when I was in Vancouver in Canada, and I had the privilege to be at a couple of my friends first. And that was the most incredible, triumphant, just the most incredible thing that I ever witnessed.
Yeah.
So I'm equal parts terrified and excited to experience that initiation and threshold, and it's the ultimate journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very human experience. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome. I appreciate it. I think we had a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining the Neuro's Journey podcast. If this episode landed, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The real medicine is in the connection, and this community only grows when we reach for each other. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. And if you have a minute, leaving a rating really helps more people find this work. And keep showing up for your own journey. Every small act of courage matters. For you, for the people around you, and for all of us. I am so grateful to be walking this path with you.